Hello everyone, and welcome to my retrospective. A bit of a long series I plan to make where I cover how my game got to this point. Now, to just get it out of the way, why a retrospective instead of a traditional devlog, and why only now? I chose to do a retrospective because, well, many of the major game mechanics in my game are already done. Right now, the last few levels, the thing most of the development time has been spent on, is a whole lot of spoiler territory. Stuff I can only hint and wink at. And I can't fill an entire devlog with just that. Though once I get to stuff I can talk about, I promise we'll be getting lots of proper devlogs on them. So to fill in the void of content on the channel and get some eyes on the game, why not pull out some retrospectives to show my process in a little bit of an indirect way. As for why only now, it's not like I haven't tried before. I've never been able to stick to maintaining a social media presence until very recently with the creation of my Blue Sky account. Even then, I still wasn't the most consistent poster, but that account helped me build the stamina I needed to make consistent enough content. So with that out of the way, let's start the retrospective proper. The story of GrappleRun starts around late 2022, and like many of my ideas, it came to me while I was doing something dumb. I was wandering in my house, holding onto a corner of the dinner table and swinging myself around it. I had fun. So much fun, I thought. What if I tried making this into a game? And so I completed a prototype in about a week. Probably the fastest I've ever gone from idea to prototype now that I think about it. The very earliest version of this game was originally intended to be 3D, but GrappleRun's internals deal with a lot of math and physics shenanigans that I wasn't ready to take on in 3D. So I just decided to make the game 2D. It was unbelievably simple. Only grappling was in the first prototype. It was effectively a one-button game. The earliest prototype wasn't even called GrappleRun. It was called Stretch Race, inspired by how Subject GR would stretch his arms out to race around the track. Even then, I showed it to my classmates and they liked it. Because we were using lockdown Chromebooks, I had to install, quote-unquote, the game in a roundabout way, giving them project files and loading the game into my game engine, which could run unblocked in the web browser. In subsequent updates, I added strafing due to the feedback of some of the people in my class. At first, I was resistant, thinking that adding an alternative way to move aside from auto-running and grappling would turn attention away from the grappling mechanics. But I eventually added it in a way that would still center grappling. Around the time, I was getting tired of having to manually install the game for people and looked for a way to host the game on an unblocked website. GOTM, a Godot-focused web game platform that's sadly dead now, was my solution since it wasn't blocked. But it didn't support the newly released Godot 4, the engine I was using for the game, so I downgraded the game, marking the first time I'd scrap and rebuild the codebase. Around this time was also when I made the decision to swap the name to GrappleRun, because I thought it sounded cooler and less awkward. This version of GrappleRun, which I now codename GrappleRun GD3, is weird. The prototype has sadly lost media, but this version is one I still have the codebase for. During the development of this build is also when jumping and sliding were introduced. Subject GR has a different sprite, and the title screen animation is broken. Clicking play leads you to the first level, the tutorial, which looks similar to the full game, but the FOV is much smaller. There's also no audio. The default keybinds are different, and so is strafing. Strafing was a whole ordeal when it came to implementation. That's something I'll cover in another video. Also, Subject GR is ridiculously fast, accelerating constantly, and the skill points accumulate based on how long you can maintain that speed without slowing down. This is something I decided to change because I gave the GrappleRunner a speed cap based on difficulty, making the game much more manageable. Finally clearing out the tutorial, you'll find that none of the other levels have any theming. The tutorial was actually the first ever GrappleRun level to have a theme. But there's something much more interesting on the title screen. Multiplayer and the level editor. Crazily enough, both work. They're extremely rudimentary and limiting, but they absolutely do work. Multiplayer allows you to race through a queue of levels set by the host, and allows you to set a color and username for yourself. You can even kick people as the host. When playing, the game does legitimately show the other players. The level editor is rough. It only has that metal tile from the unthemed levels, as well as some of the rudimentary objects a level needs, like a player to spawn, grapple points, checkpoints, and the goal. You can even rotate and scale objects, but you can't reposition them after placing, and you can only rotate and scale your last object. The two extra modes even link. The multiplayer allows you to load up custom levels to play with your friends. But all this made me learn an important lesson of burnout. I had implemented all of these extra features, leaving me too tired to actually finish the single player campaign. I grew a little frustrated. I made GrappleRun not only because I thought it'd be a fun idea, but because I wanted to finish the projects and this one seemed realistic enough. So I made a decision to scrap this book codebase and work on a new one, upgrading back to Good 04 and making it a goal to focus on not extra enticing features like the multiplayer, but to focus on the actual game. This new build of the game would eventually go on to become the final version of GrappleRun, the one you see in the demos and the trailers. This is where I'll mark the retrospective off today. If you enjoyed what you watched, please like and subscribe, but also check out the demo and my Blue Sky account for more GrappleRun. It'll be in the description and in the comments if the description links don't work. See you next time!